Hi everyone, this is Chitika. Welcome back to Working Knowledge. This is an episode we recorded a little while ago as part of our tech series, but didn't get a chance to share. So here it is. We hope you like it, and this is going to be our last bit of content for a little while. So we hope you enjoyed joining us on our little journey to learn new things, and we hope that you keep doing it on your own time as things move on. So we hope everyone is being safe and careful. And without further ado, here is our last episode. Hello, everyone. This is Chitika.
Hello, everyone. This is Selena.
And you're listening to the Working Knowledge podcast. Welcome back. We're on episode 5 of series 3. Yeah, wow. That's a lot of episodes in. If you're still here, thank you for...
14 episodes, I think. This is our 14th episode.
That makes sense. That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually do any math, but that sounds correct.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we were at 10 like 2 weeks ago, yeah. So if you've been here from the beginning, thank you very much for staying with us as we figure out this podcasting thing and talk about a lot of random things. And if you're just joining us, welcome, and we hope you like it here.
I hope you like it here.
So today we're gonna continue our series talking about tech, and we're just gonna get a little bit we're gonna take a step back, get a little reflective. Obviously, there are a lot of kind of things we could do specific episodes on, and lots of things that we definitely want to learn more about. But we're just trying to keep with the spirit of doing little bits of new bits of knowledge every series, and then kind of moving on to other new things. So not exactly depth is not quite the goal. But
just learn a little every time. Increase our working knowledge.
Exactly. You just need a working knowledge. We're not diving into the ones and zeros, people. But today we thought we would talk about kind of the big picture, reflect a little bit on where technology has brought us, as in humanity. It's sort of big words over there. But Selena and I both watched The Social Dilemma, which is a big, everyone's buzzing about it these days. So
it's a documentary on Netflix. Yeah.
And I should have had all the names of the important people listed out.
Oh, I can look it up.
And everything. But who's the guy who's behind it all?
So the documentary sort of centers in the beginning, and the first act at least, it centers around this guy named Tristan Harris, who supposedly is an ethical tech giant of some sort. Maybe not a giant, but
yeah. Well, he spent some time at Facebook, and then
Google. He was on the
Google,
Gmail team, and he had some ethical concerns about the way that they were designing the system. But for those who haven't seen The Social Dilemma, I recommend it as a way to look at the situation. The one-liner for the documentary on Google says, "Tech experts sound the alarm on the dangerous human impact of social networking." Director is Jeff Orlowski.
Don't know who that is.
I don't know who that
but
is.
That's interesting because it's already dissociating it's the human impact of social networking.
Social networking, yeah.
So it's social networking in itself is whatever, but then people are having some damaging impact, which is interesting in it's shifting responsibility in a sort of subtle way. But I feel that was one of the big takeaways was this issue of who is responsible for what goes on, because clearly there's a lot of it's that's the whole thing, right? When you start if I had a company after my name, I'd be there's Chitika the person and Chitika the company, so that if somebody needs to sue, they sue Chitika the company and not me for my personal assets. And that's what every entrepreneur does, right? When they start a company, of course. You have an LLC or whatever. Yeah, that's what it is. Limited liability corporation.
I don't know.
Anyway, so that's kind of the vibe here. Is that's kind of what's happening. Somebody is people are well, we need to hold XYZ people accountable, and they're yeah, Facebook. did XYZ, or Google did all this, as if like there is no human agency behind any of those, you know, decisions. It's kind of like
exactly, yeah,
interesting.
It's like I think the documentary, obviously it's meant in a very not positive. It's meant to be like a constructive, and potentially like maybe exaggerated version of like the issues at hand. I think so there were like three, in my opinion, there were like three main acts of the documentary. The first being like they kind of introduced the idea of ethics in social media or like tech. The second being like they talk a lot about the psychology behind it, and like they do like these cutscenes and it's like kind of weird. And then the third I think is like yeah, the bad actors. I think the third act is like where obviously everything ends up, and it's like the what do you call it?
Like what the world could look like, sort of.
What the world looks like, and like we need regulation, we need to deal with this. And like I personally thought that the most impactful act, quote unquote, was the second, where they talk a lot about the psychology behind it.
Yeah.
Because that is a huge part of social media. It's like even in like for my for HCI at CMU, if you do the minor, you don't have to take any of these classes. But if you do the major, you have to take psychology classes. And I think that's like a hard set requirement.
An indicator, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's just like, I guess I never really thought about it like before I went to CMU, like how.
And you were 17.
Psychology plays. Yeah, I was 17. Well, no, I was 18. No, was I 17 or 18? I don't remember.
You would have. Oh no, you would have just turned 18 because you're February.
Yeah. You were 17.
I was 17. Baby.
Oof, baby, yeah. But the psychology behind it is interesting because a lot of it has to do with manipulation. I think that's what a big part of the documentary was, manipulating someone to do something based on the way that they surf the web or the way that they use an app.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's like, I think the documentary makes this pretty clear, but the core approach of like roping in advertising as the way to monetize social media is where everything, like where the problem stems from. Because even pre-internet, not that I was around, but like, you know, like
you were kind of around mainstream
actually,
internet.
Sure. I've seen the Nokias. I've used the Nokias. Yeah. But yeah, pre-web advertising was always like
you buy a space on a website, but not like a targeted thing so much as it is now.
No, but like advertising is like the OG manipulation.
Oh yeah.
Always, like excuse me. Coming at it from, say, even an architectural perspective, like we study this in class sometimes too. Like I remember taking a class on suburbs, and the way they even sell certain kinds of like lifestyles are completely based on like, you know, the core understandings of like how human beings work. Yeah. So I mean, it's everywhere. Like obviously consumerism is sort of like maybe more rampant the more advanced we get. But it's been the like marketing and advertising and selling and like making money off of people is by no means a new concept.
No,
it's
not
just
at all.
I think so much more invasive in a way because social media is so ubiquitous. Like you really there's so many more steps in like, you know, buying a home or like signing up for like the picket fence and like buying into whatever, like, you know, life choices. There's a bit more of like, I think there are more opportunities to like back out of that decision or whatever, as opposed to like making an Instagram account and like liking a few like 100 posts and then being like, never mind, I guess this is all I'm going to see now. Or, you know, mentioning to your friend over the phone that like you want to get a new dress for something you're attending, and then seeing ads upon ads upon ads from like Shein or whoever. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I think like the sort of focus on psychology is really important because it kind of, I think a lot of times, depending on the generation, people like will blame like like technology as a whole for like being the problem, that like if you reject, you know, any new stuff, you'll be safe. But I feel like it's important to remind ourselves that ultimately the problem is just a reflection of like human beings being parasitic all more than anything else. You know what I mean?
And
It's
money.
like, yeah, it's kind of like, no, this is really just what happens when you throw like tech and, I don't know, like consumerism together. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
it's
Like, just look at Instagram and like the way
yeah.
that they've done like Instagram shopping, and I guess Facebook also has like shopping and stuff like that too.
Facebook
That's
has
how.
Facebook dating now too. I don't even want to think about it. But
Yeah, we should have talked about that in our dating episode.
did we not?
I
Oh,
don't think we mentioned
oh
it.
well.
We mentioned another
Well,
one.
as
Yeah,
a follow
whatever.
up to, what was it, like series 1, episode 3, 4, Dare to Date.
Three.
Facebook has dating now. I haven't tried
Yeah,
it. I don't know anyone who's tried it.
I think it's
I don't
funny.
think people use
So
it. Anyway.
yeah. Anyways, yeah, I think the advertising thing is like a really big issue. And I know like in one part of the documentary, it's like I think it was one of the first like developers of Facebook or something. They were trying to figure out how to monetize it. And
Yeah.
and that's something that I guess anyone who creates an online product nowadays, they have to have that same discussion, or they have to have that decision making point where
Right.
you decide how are you going to make money off of this, if this is like a product that you're selling, right? So there's those products that are like physical, obviously that's how you make money. But this one, I guess there's only like really so many options. Like you can sell ads like Facebook and Instagram do, and YouTube and Google, or you can like sell a subscription. That's another one. Oh my god, I can't remember from my class. My teacher would hate me. Or you can do investments. Have an investor that kind of invests in the value of your company. Though even that still it kind of requires some other kind of compensation making method. So
Right.
yeah, there's really not a whole lot of ways to have a quote unquote tech company without having some form of advertising.
For sure.
And that's the problem, I think, with a lot of companies not being able to control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I think they asked this question in the documentary, but as a general rule, if you're getting something for free, you should always like wonder somebody's paying for it.
Yeah, somebody is
So,
paying for it.
like, you can't change the, like, there's always like value associated with something being given to you. So there's
Consumerism.
nothing is free. Yeah,
Nothing is
unless
free.
you live on
That's
like
what my
a
family always says.
deserted island. And even then, I really remember I had a complete crisis once. It was like halfway through school, and I was just like, I think I've talked about this already on a previous episode, but I was like, why am I, oh no, this was this summer when I was doing my taxes. I was like, everything has like some money. Everybody has to pay something for
Yeah.
something, and you don't
Yeah, it's
own
crazy.
anything because you're always just like renting your like entire life from, you know, like the powers that be.
Yep.
And it's just kind of like, what is mine in this world?
Yep.
I just completely lost it. Yeah.
It's okay.
So
I get that. Yeah.
but you know, not to make myself sound like extra like self-aware, but I don't think that's something that people sit and think about in their summer, is like, oh my gosh, I own nothing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you don't really. So this like illusion of ownership is probably behind all this too. Like you think you have control over all these aspects of your life, including your digital footprint and what you choose to see, and even the information that's like in your head and what you choose to believe. But yeah, the illusion of choice is, that's the big one. I mean, now
That
we
is
can
a
get
big
all
one.
like moral philosophy about it and talk about determinism and whatnot, which like maybe
No,
today's
we're not
for
going to
today.
go into that
But
part of it.
but those are, you know, that's kind
It's
of
kind of
probably
related.
where people
Yeah.
get there and have these like moments of crisis when you feel like you don't really have any agency over what you're doing. So
Well, you don't,
this
because everything is like advertising is manipulation in a way. And social media is also manipulation, like outside of the advertising part of it. You know, there's the body dysmorphia issues, there's the just like the quality of life disparities, that kind of thing.
yeah.
Like it's just I don't know. Sometimes I'm like always on the fence because I know like obviously we do this on social media. We promote our podcast on social media. Yeah. We like I promote my Etsy store on social media, and it's like almost hard to criticize social media because it's so prevalent in our lives. But at the same time, I guess that's why like documentaries like this are created to criticize. I don't know.
Well, that's the tricky thing because it's made necessary because there's clearly a sort of like an advantage. There is like the basic goal of and they talk about this in the documentary, but like the core motivation behind this thing is always ultimately to like improve lives, right? Like that's usually the approach that tech innovators come at life with, is like, what can we do to make
the world a
easier,
better place,
faster, better? Make the world a better place.
So Silicon Valley, the show, we talked about it last.
You really gotta watch that. Yeah,
I know. Yeah. But there's like a running joke in one of the earlier seasons is they're at like a tech like presentation competition thing, and every team's like ending their presentation with, and this will make the world a better place, and this product is here to make the world a better place. Yeah. And like it's not that far off from reality because
I doubt it.
They all do kind of try, like any tech product or technological innovation is built on the idea that it will innovate something or make something better, but it's just like so funny to me. Yeah. Make the world a better place.
It is. There are some professions, right, that are like kind of that's the goal. Like doctors save lives, like and then people like I don't know what architects makes buildings. But like this is funny. It's, like I feel like we went through all of this is a side, but we went through architecture school being like, architecture is problem solving, and now like I talk to everyone and I'm like, so like what do you like? Why do you like what you do? And they're like, well, because it's problem solving, and I'm like, if somebody else tells me what they do is problem solving, I'm gonna lose my mind. Like.
I mean, that's what tech people would say too, is that they're just solving the world's problems,
which is fair. Yeah, and I think that makes complete sense, actually. But then I was sitting there and thinking, I was like, what can you not, like, ultimately posit as a problem and a solution,
That's
right?
True.
Like, there are people have different abilities or like skills at doing that. Like maybe depending on what, like, field you're in, you're not like trained or like maybe used to saying this is a problem and this is a solution, and maybe like ideally tech people and I don't know, hopefully like designers, right, are maybe designer is a good broad term because like a lot of people in tech can be considered designers, but like the sort of like designers can look at problem solution because you have to have like a problem and then propose a solution via design through it. So it's like, okay, yeah, like you can always dissect like even I don't know, like you can dissect like the hospitality industry into problem solution. Like the problem is that people want to be entertained and your solution is how you entertain them. Like
anything can be broken down that way.
Exactly. So that was another recent crisis.
I mean that's kind of what, like, back to the documentary, I guess that's what these people that were interviewed were saying. Like, we were just solving a problem and this was our solution, and then it just kind of went south. And then we created different, and then you created a nightmare. Yeah, which is why like Chitika and I were so critical of it during like the second and third act. Is like, of course, like we know that you like tried to just problem solve, but now you can't just blame the company for all these problems you created. You have to sort of blame yourself, because you guys are the ones making it. You're making these decisions, and like it's ethically, obviously it's not a good thing, but you just have to take responsibility for it. So
I mean, it's like that has happened in history. Like people talk about it with like nuclear power all the time, or people are always like, did you know that the dynamite was actually invented as a useful tool on construction sites?
It was, I think.
And so there's like, not to be too critical of human beings, but there is a little bit of like, we like destroy everything we touch vibe to human existence. It just increasingly I feel like that's the truth, because like you give us a forest, we'll set it on fire. You give us social media, we'll give like teenagers mental health issues. You give us democracy, we'll constantly be trying to uproot it. Like I don't know. But then the thing is, like, yeah, that's like the hard thing, because these are obviously somebody sitting. Now it seems ridiculous, but when everyone first started to hear, like, well, here are the negative effects of, social networking, you were kind of stunned. It was like, really? Is this even
is this actually a problem?
Yeah. And then,
and then now you see the long-term effects of it. I mean, we've been with, like, YouTube has been around since 2006, so like 14 years.
Only? Really?
Yeah, 2005 or 2006. And like Facebook's been around
Wow.
since a little after that, I believe. So yeah, I mean, we kind of just got into like the first 10-15 years of like this huge rise, and we're finally starting to see the effects of it. Not like finally, but like we are starting to see the effects of it. Yeah.
And at the same time, like, looking back, I don't know if you can hear the siren, but
yeah, I can hear the siren.
I sound like I live in like New York City or something every time we record.
Oh my gosh,
it's so loud.
It's okay. You live next to a hospital, so there's not much you can do about that.
Fair.
Yeah.
Where was I going with that? Oh, well, looking back, it seems kind of like the signs were always there. I mean, I got my Facebook account when I was 12.
I got one way before I was allowed to, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was like close. I think the age was 13.
Yeah, because that's is it? I forget
which is
what it's
young.
called.
13 is young.
Yeah.
But I asked my parents. I was like,
oh, you did?
Everyone has a Facebook account, and can I just get one? I know I'm like only 12, but like it's not that, And they were like, fine, just like be responsible. But it was also like my friends had like their Facebook accounts when they were 10, 11.
Yeah.
And then people had
at the time it was a big thing. I remember like my first encounter that was like significant. Not like encounter. I think this is really funny. But we were in like 5th or 6th grade, and then there was this new girl that had just come in from another elementary school. And apparently she was like super hot. I mean, she was really nice. Okay, she's a teacher now, and she's like,
this is 5th
really
grade?
Sweet. Yeah, but like at the time, like all these boys were like so over, like ecstatic for her. And I remember this very significant moment where so there was like one classroom here and then one classroom here, and the doors were like you could like look into the other classroom through the open doors of the classrooms, and she was in another class, and the boys in my class would like peek through the door, and then they'd be like, damn, she's so hot, and then they would like walk away and be like, what? And then somehow word got out that she had a Facebook, so it was like a big deal when these boys would like friend her on Facebook and she would accept. That was like my significant moment, remembering the beginnings of Facebook. I think I already had one before that, but I just remember that moment. So
I would never go back to being 12 years old. You couldn't pay me enough.
How old are you when you're in 5th grade?
10 or 11.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, it was a big deal when that was a thing.
Yeah.
So
I am sure it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the child thing is like a big deal now, especially because with YouTube. I mean, I don't know how much you know about like the YouTube advertising space, but and I'm probably gonna say this completely wrong. I just know like generally about it because I follow some people, but generally like YouTube has changed a lot of their algorithm and their money making or money like advertising strategies. I guess that comes from the pressure. Same with like the documentary where they ask for regulation from the government and from these tech companies. It comes from that pressure to regulate their advertising models. But then that also in some ways where you have a platform like YouTube, it really harms like the creators that build up the platform. So yeah, and that it's not really the same thing for like Facebook or Instagram, but it's definitely a big issue in YouTube world, apparently.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the part of the documentary that went over like the impact on young children or like you know like teenagers, I think that was the most effective because what is up with my throat today?
Yeah, mine's like kind of weird. I think it's the weather. It's like really dry out today.
I mean, yeah, it has to be, but this is probably making people like freak out. Like I haven't been outside
we're not dying
forever.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's gonna get so tricky with like the seasonal like allergies and sickness because nobody's gonna know what they have.
Yeah, the first like a few episodes of last series, I had a really nasally voice because of my fall allergies.
No, I do that sometimes. Like I get scratchy. But I was saying that was the point, I think, for me, like, as someone watching the documentary, I felt that was the turning point. Because until then, you know, we were talking about it as we watched it too, but until then it was like, okay, yeah, you're a tech giant, you're a former whatever at whatever, you know, you've done, like, been there, made the money, like, become all this, like, significant person, and now you're coming to tell me that, you know, everything you did was so harmful to me. Like, thank you so much for this. What is this, like, parody of being a useful person? But then they came to, I think that's when actually the actors were really effective. There's a scene with the young girl in the bathroom who, like, covers up her ears because some girl commented how they're so, and
that part was
I thought that was really effective and very true. I mean, there's a lot of people, not a lot, but I'm a big fan of Jamila Jamil, and she is always using her platform and to say, okay, like, we have to be really critical of the way media presents famous people and people we are supposed to look like and look up to. And she was talking through how, you know, there's a long list of, like, famous women who will get built up by the media and then, like, a kind of strategically torn down. So, and then I started thinking about it. I mean, remember when everyone was obsessed with Jennifer Lawrence, and then everyone was like, Jennifer Lawrence is so overrated. And then everyone was obsessed with, I don't know, it happened a lot for a lot of people. She had, like, the longest list. You should follow her on Instagram. But she kind of puts her own, like, people get, like, weird stories on the Daily Mail, like, Jamila Jamil does so and so, Jamila Jamil does so and so, and she kind of, like, reposts them and calls them out and says none of this is true. Like, we're so programmed to build up and break people down via, you know, just the internet, that we're like, none of the stories are about real people. Like, there's this, like, fake persona of this ideal human being that exists on the internet, and nobody ever achieves that, and everyone's just kind of, like, tripping over each other and absolutely, like, sinking into unhealthy habits and lifestyles, trying to be like that girl on Instagram.
Of course.
So it's like, yeah, you have to think, okay, yes, that's something that can be done on social media, but then does that really take responsibility away from somebody like, I know you love the Kardashians, but you know,
I like some of them. Yeah.
Sure. And I'm assuming as, like, a parody of human beings, not as people you respect. Yeah. So if you think of, like, the whole Kylie Jenner phenomenon, and people are like, I want to look like Kylie Jenner, so, like, I'm going to apply lipstick, like, up to my nose. Yeah. And then people are like, I hope you realize, like, that's not even
not real. That's not reality.
Like, you're trying to recreate, like, a silicone face on your own. So that's already problematic. So, and again, those things were there for, you know, like, from the beginning of, like, pop culture and media and, like, any of that, the like, people trying to recreate certain looks on themselves.
Which is why, like, when they say like, these people that used to work at these tech companies in the documentary, when they say, like, we didn't know that this was gonna happen, of course you knew this was, well, I don't know how you wouldn't know.
Should have, like,
you should have, like, maybe this is just us being, like, naive, and, like, maybe we wouldn't have known back then, but, like, just thinking about even before technology or, like, social media was here, this stuff was already happening in, like, magazines, in TV, in like, all these things. And then obviously, if you're going to create a platform that makes things even easier to do, to post pictures and to comment, and one guy was saying, like, they didn't know, like, the implications behind the like button or something like that. Like, of course it's just making everything more transparent.
And more in your face.
More in your face.
A great example is this 2004 movie called 13 Going on 30.
Oh, I love that movie.
I'm obsessed. Good. Yeah, it was great.
So good.
And actually, I think it had somewhat of an impact on me as a teenager to, like, try to be more grounded, because you watch, Jennifer Garner's character, Jenna Rink, who, by the way, the girl who played young Jenna Rink is on TikTok, and
I showed you that video. She looks exactly the same. Yeah,
she also looks like Jennifer Garner. Yeah. Like, they really nailed that casting, because it's very believable that she grew up to look like.
Yeah, they do look very similar. They look like they could be sisters.
Gosh, it's insane.
Such a good movie.
But the whole, like, arc of she's caught up in everything she sees in magazines and on TV, and then she goes on to, like, buy into this lifestyle that's been sold to her, ultimately to realize that she personally doesn't care for any of it. It is like, it's real, and those things have been true, and you know, like, young girls have been especially susceptible to all of that for like ever. That's just kind of,
it's just how it's been. Even, I mean, that was like in the 80s, and of course it's just going to continue if you create a platform for it.
So it's kind of like, well, then we come to the diversity issue, because that's what happens when a bunch of like privileged like white boys who like went to Stanford and no
Stanford,
just to keep
MIT.
So I know some great people who go to Stanford, but people who went, like, who always kind of like had access to resources and didn't have any like real like, you know, like, they didn't have to like face the world a certain way growing up because of the privilege they were born into. This is what happens when it's only those people making decisions, because they don't even have like their own experiences don't cover the worst of what could happen to a young person.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's just, and it shows in the documentary. It really
shows, because there's not, they're all white men, mostly white men,
and like young trendy people like that everyone aspires to be, until they look into the mirror and they're like, never mind, I'm like a brown woman, you know?
And I think this was actually a big deal that someone pointed out on Twitter, is that there was only one person of color, I think it was a black woman at the very end, but she wasn't even part of the tech world. She was someone from a university. She was like a legal person. Or
she was no. She was an academic.
She was like some advisor for the documentary, I think.
But she was not talking about like policy or something. But yeah, she wasn't like a tech entrepreneur.
Which is like it. I mean, like, if she was a tech entrepreneur, I think she would have some say, obviously, in exactly what they're doing, because that's what she was talking about. She was criticizing it.
So. I highly doubt if there was like, if there was enough representation in the room of people that decided, let's try to sell like fake lips and diet smoothies to 14-year-olds. I highly doubt somebody who had actually been a 14-year-old girl ever in their life would have
ever wanted to do that.
Would have not, some at least objected, you know.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like
it's not. Yeah, I don't wholly blame like the social media companies. I also kind of blame like advertisers, right? Because they're just taking advantage of this other platform, and I mean, people have moved completely to online advertising nowadays. Yeah, but it's definitely not just one person's fault.
I know it will, because ultimately it's kind of like, if you are a mom and pop business and you have to.
It's okay. There's not much we can do. It's okay.
I was gonna say it's a Saturday, but it's Thursday.
It's gonna be 24/7. Even on a Saturday, it wouldn't matter.
But then you can say, like, come on, can people just stay indoors on Saturday morning and not create problems? Although, of course, the siren could be responding to a domestic problem. But
yeah. Anyways, what were you saying?
Train of thought.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What were we talking about?
I
was gonna say something good.
Oh no.
Oh, you don't blame the social media companies advertising. Yeah. Yes. And I was like, that's kind of what I keep coming back to in my own thought process, is that it's just a symptom of like the problem, which is the kind of our value system as a society. Like, not to make this, not to drop the C word and the
America, but it's a big thing. This
is what happens when capitalism is like the backbone of like the country. Like, this is just like, if your entire model of existence is that everything is a competition and everything needs to make money to survive, of course everyone is going to jump to advertising, because if you need people to buy what you do for a living, for you to have a living, then you're going to sell whatever you can. It's like either that or you get stomped on, and then you get told that it's because you don't have quality, when really you just don't have the same resources and capital as everyone. So it's complete BS. And when you think about it from the point of view of like, yes, everyone has to use or does use social media advertising, and that's also like, there's just kind of too much information for one person. That's because you have huge companies being able to like pay for ads and afford, like pay people to just exist, to post on Instagram all the time, and then pay like programmers to sit and collect like, oh, this is when usage is highest, so we should post on like Friday morning and not Wednesday afternoon, etc., etc. Like when you've turned it into an entire industry that also employs other people and makes them able to live, then again, it always comes down to the question of like, how much initial capital do you have? A mom and pop shop that's like trying desperately to keep up with this, like
social media
we have
wave.
to have a really cute Instagram so that people buy our pizza. It has nothing to do with how the pizza tastes. It has absolutely nothing to do with like whether or not it's even safe. Like if you don't even go to a restaurant anymore, do you know if they follow health and like safety codes? Have you seen, I'm completely forgetting like where I saw this, but there was this hilarious like some kind of like social experiment some guy did on YouTube or something. And he was like, I can prove that you can create a profitable like business for like a restaurant that's based on a like location out of nothing. The guy had nothing. Like he was just trying to prove that your entire like value as a business lies in the reach of your Instagram account.
Oh, well, that makes sense though.
It was insane. I mean, I thought it was hilarious, but now I'm just like, that's kind of the truth.
It's kind of scary.
Now I'm I'll find the link if I can, like, and try to send it to you. But he literally just like starts this like new restaurant. He makes it have like Yelp reviews. He like gets people to write, or he like makes accounts and writes these like incredible Yelp reviews. It like is priced really high, and this guy has no space. He's like sitting in a house like me. And not even like it's not even like a very nice house that he could like turn it into, you know what I mean? He's just like, it's like a regular like 1-story like ground apartment. And he has like something of a backyard, and then he like says it's going to close for a week, or it's like special opening offer like on this and this day, and like reservation only, and like location, and it's like some kind of like like amazing experience, like the location is secret, blah blah blah. And people start calling to make reservations.
Oh wow.
And then he like books it, or he like starts saying like only 2 spots left when there are like way more spots left. And people make reservations. They're like, oh my god, there's this like new restaurant in town and it's super fancy. He goes to the store and just buys like microwave meals, and he just sets up like tables in his yard.
Oh my
and
gosh.
He like makes the yard cute, and he just it takes him like $20, like string lights, because it's dark, no one can see what the status of the weeds is, and he makes it like kind of pretty and like interesting. And then part of the experience is that you get like blindfolded to be brought to the restaurant, so that because it's a secret location and like reservation only, and it's like so exclusive. That's what he sells. So people come so fancy, and they're like, they have no idea. They're like walking on the most ordinary like suburban street, like past like an alley, like there's a dumpster right there, but they're like dressed in their finest threads and like wearing a blindfold.
Is this Yes Theory? Is that who you're talking about?
That sounds familiar. I don't know.
Maybe.
But then they sit there and they pay like $100 for like 2 microwave risottos.
Okay, that sounds really familiar to. I mean, I'm sure multiple people have done this, but Yes Theory, which is a YouTube channel, they're like, their whole ethos is like seeking discomfort and like making, like going out and doing things that make you uncomfortable. But they did do a backyard restaurant in LA kind of thing with string lights. That might be it. Yeah, no, yeah, I love Yes Theory. Yes Theory is great. They're very, I wouldn't say inspirational, but they're very like. I guess inspirational to watch. But yeah.
Yeah, turning our backyard into the #1 restaurant in LA.
Yeah, but that idea is like, it's true though, because and it sucks to say, but you can't have a business without some form of social media like footprint, especially in a city. If you're in sort of a rural town that everyone knows each other, that's like a little different. Even then though, people still kind of look up and like check things online.
Right. Well, because now you don't have to like, if you want to eat like specialty cuisine, as in like what you didn't grow up eating and cooking, you don't have to go to a restaurant anymore to do that. It's really easy to make specialty food at home now. And second of all, like you can order food so easily. So anybody going to a restaurant, not even considering COVID, would only go for the dining experience and for the clout of like, this is where I eat and this is where I buy my coffee. And the quality makes, like Starbucks is so popular for why? they burn their beans, you know? It's
Yeah,
all
I
like
know.
all advertising. It's all in the like capitalism model. It's just the
We could talk about capitalism for an entire
yeah.
series,
And I
but
don't want to do
I don't
that.
want to get
Like
into
I don't want to
it.
make that a
That's not a
habit
topic
of
that I want to
yeah.
do. Yeah.
But it's just that's just kind of what it is. So it's just a symptom of the larger issue. So I agree with you that I think it's really disconnected of these like tech giants to sit in this room and try to decide the fate of all these people and like play God and then be like, oh, I didn't even think of these consequences. Like, did you not read a book? I don't understand. Did you never watch the news?
Also, like, they didn't have, like you were saying, they didn't have diversity, they didn't have research, they just did it. And they're just, in a lot of ways, these are just people that are interested in how things work. Like, they just want to make things work to make them work, and not because of the implications.
Like, the challenge of, like, faster, better, whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And
exactly.
not really always thinking of, like we talked about this, we've definitely mentioned this on an episode, or maybe not, I can't tell anymore, but like was it you who told me that like airplanes just can't get any better? Like,
I think it was you that told me.
Maybe, I'm trying to remember, someone told me and it changed my life, because I was like, maybe that's why, right? Like, people are like, aviation is this like sort of like stagnant industry. But it's because maybe like people like are not bothered to make like faster planes. There's something like you can make, like if you made planes faster, it would take so much, or they would be like to actually impact the time it takes to travel from one place to another. You would have to like really do a lot, and you would just be on like a Mach.
Oh, maybe it was me. Like, I think I was talking about Elon Musk or something, but I don't think it was on the podcast.
But like someone told me that
yeah,
planes don't get any better. So yeah, it's like one of those things where we have to. Well, planes are also like so much more essential in some way, but we have to. One could argue that planes could get better because you could somehow figure out how not to have such a like obscenely bad mileage. It's like 0.11 gallons.
Well, I think what Elon Musk said in this Joe Rogan interview, which is probably where I heard it from, is they can't get any better because or maybe that was rockets. I don't know. I think something about like the getting off the ground is the issue.
Maybe that, I don't know. I mean, whatever. It's like, that's a whole other thing. Yeah. But the point is, there's a sort of desire to discover and innovate to exhaustion, where you're like, this is the best it can be. Like, now let's move on to something else. And that's how we've come to, without thinking about the long term or the larger picture. I mean, that's how we've come to the whole climate change issue in the first place, where we don't do the math, or we don't study all the consequences. We don't consider like one decision you make has so many, consequences.
Yeah.
That follow. But it's like, you would think that like somebody in such a powerful position arguing that they deserve to be there because they have the best education and they're like the smartest people on the planet and the most creative and like have the interest of humanity at heart, how can those people make these mistakes and then not be held accountable? That's what my problem is. Like, I don't aspire to be a tech entrepreneur because I know it's like not something that's like, wow, that's a lot, and I respect you doing all kinds of cool things, but like, then that's why also I'm not accountable in the same way. Like, you don't, like, I mean, people don't do so many things because they're like, I don't want to be the person whose like neck is on the line for something like that. So much could go wrong.
I mean, you could say the same thing for architecture, but I think architecture has some more hard physical like proof, whereas social media is still kind of up in the air right now as to the implications.
Well, also that's a conversation in architecture too, like the famous Zaha Hadid, who, she's cool and all, but like I never like had this like, I also feel like I don't like revere people, so
me neither. When people say what's your favorite architect, I'm like, I don't know, I don't care.
This is a PSA, like, never ask. Well, maybe it's a good litmus test. If you ask an architect or architecture student who their favorite architect is, and they have a serious answer for you, they don't trust them on anything, because I feel
know people that do have a favorite architect though. But personally, like, I don't like that question. You can have like someone
you really love. Yeah, but like I would say like, this is an architect I really like. Or yes, I have like a list of people I look up to. And if you make me answer this question, I will answer it or try to answer it. But I will also aggressively push back on this notion of having a favorite architect, right?
Because
or
then
favorite anything.
I don't like the favorites question. When people ask me what my favorite anything is, I'm just like, I'm not going to answer this question. Right. I refuse to answer favorites.
More than that, I feel like, especially if you're a professional in a certain field, like you can't really have a favorite if you've done, now we're just like on another topic, but you can't really have a favorite until you, or like if you've actually read anything about more than one important person in the field. So you having a favorite just means you've like bought into some notion of like, this is the correct way to do this. And there's no nuance to that question. So unless somebody challenges the question and gives you a nuanced answer, like, don't, like, that's, you know, maybe
don't just take it with a grain of salt, or take it with a grain of salt.
Right. Don't just kind of like so how did we get here? We're so distracted today. Where I am. Zaha Hadid. So there was this whole controversy where like people, at least one, if not more, like construction worker on some site of hers in like Shanghai like died because of some like site injury, because of some lack of precaution. And she was like, she literally was quoted saying, "It's not my responsibility what happens to workers like on a site for my project." And I'm like, did you read that sentence before you like issued it and allowed it to be published? Like, how is that even something someone can conceive? I mean, you are the, like, people can take credit, right? People go like, Zaha Hadid is the mastermind behind, I don't know, this
parametric design
building that looks like a spaceship, and like Mark Zuckerberg is the mastermind behind like Facebook. But when it comes to taking responsibility, it's suddenly collaborative. It's suddenly like you were just one of the people trying to do something good, and like it got out of hand. Nobody ever says that when they get like like Forbes or whatever person of the year. Like nobody pushes back on there's no such thing as person of the year, because it's always a team, or like I can't be given. So you can be given like all the credit for something good you did, but not all the responsibility for something bad you did.
That's exactly right. That's so important to remember, because you can't just pass off responsibility just because you don't want to take the hit for it. It's just,
Oh yeah. I always think of like Dumbledore in one of the later books, like he's talking to Harry as like a memory, and it's like right at the end, and he says, you know, unfortunately, and this is like he says it more eloquently, but he's like, basically, since I'm a really like wise man and I make some really good decisions because of that, my mistakes are also consequently that much more devastating. And that's just, it's true. Like people who can do really great things can also do really bad things, and they need to know that about themselves. Like, and I'm not suggesting that should paralyze people. Like, you know,
but it should be so something that
you do it, but you should know you're dipping your toes.
You should keep it in mind, and then also just like stay aware and be informed about like the consequences. Like find resources and do those things.
Yeah. Like tomorrow, if you make like if you, I've forgotten who invented the dynamite, but like somebody sitting there being like, I'm gonna make this like awesome thing for people, and I know that it could be misused. I mean, like, do that, and then do everything in your power to protect that technology, right? Like I think it, you know, the way the documentary presented things, we did come to this sort of, or we were encouraged to come to the conclusion that there needs to be more regulation and more policy and more lawmaking. But also, let's not forget that like the whole like right of an individual and a private corporation is above everything, at least here. And so it's a bit of a cop-out to like point fingers at non-techie people sitting in like whatever on Capitol Hill to be the ones controlling this, because you know more than anyone the implications of any of the stuff that you've done. So why can you just not champion that effort to? And I know some people like, or like this Tristan guy apparently is supposed to be like, you know, he has some like ethical company, or like
he has a new company that's ethical,
and he's like going around like raising awareness. But it's just kind of like, I don't know, like you can also, if you're brilliant enough to invent the like thing in the first place, I would assume you're brilliant enough to build some safeguards into it. Like it's not.
But that's just us. That's just us looking back and being like, "Yo, we're stupid."
So, but even moving forward, like I think hopefully it's always very easy to point the finger at lawmaking and say, you somehow sit down and think of something on paper that will, like, not that it's at all comparable, but like you and I have done some like policy writing at our school level. And it's just the disconnect between like what is on, sometimes you look at what's written on paper and you're like, oh, this is how things are supposed to happen. Like if we just did what we were told to do, we wouldn't have problems
all
in the
these
first
issues.
Place. Yeah, these sirens are in on. I
There's
think
three
there's a
today.
high-speed car.
Three.
It's crazy.
Oh wow.
I'm staying inside. Anyway,
yeah.
It's just we always kind of like point at lawmaking when so many issues stem from like industry in the first place. It's kind of like, yes, like industry will pollute the planet, but the parliament will figure out how to like combat climate change.
It's so all like circular, cyclical. It's like everyone's pointing fingers at everyone. It's like that Spider-Man meme.
The Spider-Man meme, yeah.
It's like, yeah. You did it. No, you did it.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. Well,
I don't know.
That was our rant. Not really a rant, I guess. It was a good discussion.
I think we said some important things, and in the process.
Yeah, I think the main takeaways I think that we got from like this documentary and from like other research and just like living in the social media age is like privacy will always be an issue. Manipulation is always an issue with the advertising models, and I guess like regulation is something else that should be considered. And like hopefully, I don't know, people got something out of this. Maybe you related to us in some way.
Yeah, I mean we could talk endlessly. Like I feel like we could fill a second episode. But I just like to think like as a person who's in the middle of all of this, I feel like it just pushes me to have like greater accountability as a person. Like I just want to because I feel like all you can do is try to be more responsible as a consumer, right? So like if you can, like it's the same on the same level as thinking about your carbon footprint of like what you eat and what you buy. It's kind of like maybe reconsider like what digital content you consume and like the impact it has on you and people around you. Like it's hard to do and unfair on some level that other better off people get to like feed you whatever nonsense and you have to sift through it. But that was a thing when newspapers were how we got our news. And it's like maybe more pronounced, but it's still a thing when you get your news like online. So like ultimately they're just issues of the human condition, and like either we evolve to be more compassionate as a species or we like die out. It's one of those.
I think it'll probably be the latter, but
yeah. Hopefully the Jetsons version of life will come true before that.
I don't know. We'll see. Maybe. We'll evolve past paper money at that point, though.
Or I feel like we're well past paper money. I don't know if I have any cash in the house.
I always try to keep a little bit of cash with me. But anyways,
it is good.
Make sure you guys subscribe on your various streaming platforms. Give us a like or a thumbs up, and follow our Instagram, which is workingknowledge_podcast.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, but it's easy to remember.
But we don't ads or anything. We just want you to listen to our podcast.
We just post clips and we don't do ads. Yay. This is just for fun. Yeah, is there anything else you want to say? No? Anything to plug?
Be safe on the internet. No, we already plugged our Instagram.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you guys, and we will hear/see you guys next time. Or talk/see you guys next time. Bye.
They'll see us.
Yeah.
Bye.